And welcome into the Wild Tales podcast. This is your host. I'm Mike Bona, and thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time, I hope you enjoy. And if you're a regular listener, thank you for your continuing support. This is the last podcast of 2024. I hope you had a wonderful year, and I hope your 2025 is even better. I have a wonderful guest in this episode, an old friend. We used to be coworkers, and now she's gone her own way to take a different path. She's kind of doing a little bit of everything. Currently in vet school, talking about a wonderful trip she had recently, working with conservation vets out in the wilds of Africa. And she's also well known for her Comic-Con visits and her cosplays and costume making. She is very talented in that aspect. Her name is Madison. She goes by Zoogirlq on all the social media, so please follow her. And we had a lot of fun chatting. We had a delightful conversation. She told a wonderful and exciting story of, well, you'll hear. It involves an eland not cooperating during a medical procedure, which sometimes animals tend to do. But, you know, she's a professional. She surrounded herself with professionals. They got through it, and you'll hear all about it. So let me just stop rambling. We'll get into the story time, and please let me welcome Madison.
There's actually.
So, Madison, thank you for joining the podcast. We've known each other for many years. We used to work together as zookeepers, and now you're across the world in Scotland going to vet school. You do
I know, it's crazy.
Conservation projects, working down in Africa, and you also have a huge following on social media doing cosplay and going to Comic-Cons in different countries. Where do you find the time? Do you even sleep?
Short answer, no. No, I do try to get a healthy 6 to 8 hours of sleep every night. It doesn't always happen, but I do expend all of my energy. Absolutely. I never know what time zone I'm in. So that's a fun thing about me. Fun fact.
That does sound fun. I see one of those, your Charizard outfit in the background.
I have Dragonite right there. I have my Cubone. I have my little hood for my Ewok. And those are just the cosplays I have on display in my little streaming room.
And you make those yourself?
Boxes and boxes. Yes, I do make them myself. I had to learn how to do pretty much everything that cosplay requires. So I learned how to work with thermoplastics. I learned how to sew. I learned how to do foam smithing, molding, 3D printing, all that good stuff.
Wow, it's all self-taught.
It's a lot of work. Yeah, it's all self-taught. I mean, I did have friends show me how to do things, but basically worked on the skills by myself.
Is that how you're going through vet school too? Is that all being self-taught?
Yes. I don't know if you've been in vet school or any school actually, but they really just give you the information. No, that's not what I meant. I take it back. But I'm sorry. No, the joke, I mean, honestly though, they really do just give you the information and then they're like, good luck. And you're like, all right, I'm supposed to be a doctor by myself.
That's how I felt, because I actually did go to school, believe it or not. But I went through the Moorpark program at the America's Teaching Zoo. I worked with animals in the zoo there for 2 years. I felt like I got an education, but then I started working at a real zoo and I was on my own.
Yeah.
And it's it's a small zoo at the school. I worked with, small primates and goats and stuff. And then I got a job at a real zoo and was put in charge of this huge, black rhino. I got 2 days of training and then all right, you're on your own. I'm like, wait, I'm on my own? You trust me to know what I'm doing with this huge animal? It's
right.
Even with the education, it's once you're on your own in the real world, you feel kind of do I belong here? Do I actually know what I'm doing?
It's crazy.
And
it's
20
crazy.
years later, I still don't know what I'm doing.
I mean, do any of us know what we're doing, or do we just get really good at pretending?
We're
Fake
all
it till
just
you make
faking
it, right?
Fake it till you make it, or retire first.
That's the worst part. I remember when I started at the zoo, and then all of a sudden I was responsible for high school students and volunteers, and I had to teach them what I had just learned myself while I was volunteering. So that was fun. But yeah, you get really good at it as you grow up. You get really good at faking it till you make it. And then people just think that you know what you're doing and you just go through life like that.
Exactly. Well, I I think we could do a whole nother episode, although it's not really animal related, talking about all your costumes and cosplay, but we're here to talk about wildlife,
Hmm.
animals, and recently
Hmm.
you took a trip to Africa. I believe you went to, was it Botswana? Is where you ended up?
Yeah, so that was just part of the trip.
Oh,
I flew in to South Africa at the end of, was it the end of June or the beginning of June? I think it was the beginning of June. And I spent 2 weeks on the Eastern Cape of South Africa doing the Vets Go Wild course, which if for all of those that don't know what the Vets Go Wild course is, it's basically this like 16-day experience for vet students that's run by William Folds, who is a wildlife conservation and management veterinarian on the Eastern Cape of South Africa. He's done absolutely wonderful work in rhino conservation. He is part of Saving the Survivors, which is a wonderful, what would you call it? Like a program?
yeah,
I
program. Yeah, William Foltz.
Saving the Well, I mean, like Saving the Survivor. So, anyways, it was a
yeah,
group of veterinarians that actually were able to save the first rhino from a poaching incident. So, the rhino was poached. They took her face off, her entire horn. She was found alive, and Will Folds, along with I think one or two other veterinarians, were able to work together to actually save her life. So, they started a foundation called Saving the Survivors, which now works to protect a lot of rhino suffering from poaching incidents in South Africa and I think like across other parts of Africa, if
yeah. I
I
believe he works
remember
in several
correctly.
other countries, and yeah, Will Foltz. He's
Hmm.
very. If you're in the industry, you know that name. He's very well known
Hmm.
as a conservationist, as a vet, wildlife vet, and he's done amazing work. And to be able to save a rhino that has been poached, has been shot, and its horn removed, and those horns they cut. I mean, it's brutal. I would not recommend anyone looking for any photos or videos. It is very disturbing to watch, and to be
Yeah.
able to treat an animal that's gone through that horrific event and have it survive, and I believe has also produced offspring since that horrific event as well. I mean, has
Yep.
added to the rhino population. That is an
Yep.
incredible story. I got to reach out. Wonder if he'd be interested in doing a podcast.
And you know what's actually crazy is well, I guess it's not that crazy, but he is an incredible, incredible storyteller. Like while I was down there spending time, he actually talked to us about rhino conservation, about Tandy specifically, about another cow that he wasn't able to save. And the way that he tells the story and the way that he's connected with those animals and is able to like connect with people through those stories is really really remarkable. Like I was there sobbing in front of him, which is I guess to be expected. It is like rhino conservation is such a like emotional thing, right? It's not just like sad and angry anymore. It's like all of the emotions. Like there's hope, there's anger, there's fear, there's sadness, there's frustration. There's just all of these things that come up in these stories. And Will is just one of the most amazing humans in all the work that he's done between the veterinary aspects to the political aspects, et cetera, et cetera. But yes, so I was able to spend 16 days on a course led by Will Folds, where the course is focused on game capture and essentially like the relocation or the veterinary care of different wildlife species in the Eastern Cape of South Africa surrounding conservation efforts. And then after those 16 days, I went to Botswana and Namibia and had a little fun doing other conservation-y things, but not so much vet work. So it was a 5-week Africa extravaganza.
Fantastic. So, what did you learn? What are some of the things you experienced while you're out there?
Oh God, what didn't I experience? So the course is basically set up. There is, I forget how many students, but I want to say there were like 12-ish veterinary students of all different ages. We even had not all different ages, but all different like stages in their veterinary careers. We even had a registered vet tech from Scotland. So there were two people coming from Scotland, me and this other girl, and then a few Bristol vets and a few, et cetera, et cetera. And the first few days were a lot of fun. We did a lot of game drives around Amakala, which is Will Folds' basically home reserve where I think he owns a share of it. And then we also did lectures. So in our lectures, we basically learned what wildlife procedures look like, right? So a veterinary procedure in a zoo is definitely different than a veterinary procedure in Africa. And I know that you have personally experienced that as well. We were even lucky enough to do one giraffe, we did two giraffe, but we did one giraffe day. And it's kind of like the wild, wild west out there. Like, I'm thankful that I am from a background of working with large animals, but there were a lot of students on this program that had only had small animal experience. And I think it was like a huge game changer for them
Oh, I
because,
bet. I bet their eyes were just wide, just popping out the whole time. Like, just.
well, it was crazy to me because it was a lot of these girls' first time to South Africa as well. And obviously I had been there. I think it was my sixth or seventh time spending time doing anti-poaching or, whatever in South Africa. Pretty much the first day they took us to a reserve and we were doing, what species was it? I think it was kudu. I think we were doing kudu relocations. So we had to relocate a bunch of kudu bulls to another
very
reserve.
large antelope in Africa, and
Large giant antelope.
large giant spiral horns.
Spiral horns, yes.
Yes, they
very
are
important.
gorgeous, but very big and potentially dangerous animals to work with.
And you know what else I learned is they take like crazy amounts of drugs to knock down. So you actually use more drugs in a kudu bull than you would a buffalo.
I did not know that.
I don't know that nobody needs to know that, I guess, but they.
Well, now my listeners know that, and they will use that information.
Yes, so they're very special animals. We get to this reserve, and we literally all hop on the back of a bucky. And it's like me, 3 other girls, and like 6 ground team guys. And I'm like, there's too many people on the back of this bucky, first of all. And that was like these girls' first African experience. We're like driving through the bush on the back of the bucky. Like, you know how it like you bounce up. If you're not holding on, you're like hitting your head on branches or like almost flying out of the bucky. It was insane experiences.
It's a rodeo.
It is definitely a rodeo. And so that was the first day. And then every day from there, we basically had a different animal procedure. And Flynn, sorry, my dog is like asking for attention right now. So every day from there, we had a different animal procedure. But the craziest and there were a lot of crazy things that happened. Like I even got to shoot a dart gun out of a helicopter, which was insane in and of itself. It was an incredible experience for a vet student. But the craziest thing that happened, we had one day. Do you know what an eland is?
Yes, another large antelope with very large.
Yeah, another large antelope with very large horns. The largest antelope, which is very important for the story. These animals are 1,700 What is it? Kilograms or pounds? They might be 1,700.
No, I think about 1,700. Yeah, well, 17. That sounds about right. About
1,700 pounds.
Pounds
or kilograms.
No, that'd be pounds. So about what would that be? About 800 kilograms.
All I know is that they're heavier than horses, right? They're huge, like absolutely huge, just solid animals. And I was thinking
1,700 kilograms would be about 4,000 pounds. Are they that big? 4,000 pounds.
I'm gonna look.
Oh my god, we gotta look this up. How big's an eland?
How much does an eland weigh? Okay, so yeah, the males, which we were moving males, are 400 to 940 kilograms.
Yeah, so about 1,800 pounds.
So about 1,800 pounds. Okay. And
we have satisfied our American and the rest of the world listeners.
I get confused. They're about 5.2 feet tall at the shoulder. So just keep that in mind. They're like kind of squatty, right? Like I'm 5'3" and 3/4 for those measuring. So they're about my height at the shoulder and 1,700 pounds. Anyways, so we're planning for this day, right? And it's really in the hands of the vet students. They split us up into teams and they were like, you guys figure out the drugs, like you figure out whatever. And then what happens is that we all are responsible for like an animal, right? So there were 3 eland that we had to move. So there were 3, it was 3. There were 3 teams of like 3 or 4 students, and a veterinarian. But the veterinarian is in the helicopter, like darting the animals, and we're on the ground team going to the animals. So basically, we come up with the drug doses, tell the vet. The vet then darts the animal, and we're on the back of the bucky, like going to find that animal, get it on the back of the truck, which, by the way, I don't know whose idea it was to put a 1,700-pound animal on the back of, when I say a bucky, like, you know what a bucky is, but just so everybody understands, it's like a Toyota, what's the small Toyota? It's like a Ford Ranger, right?
Okay,
It's
yeah.
this tiny, tiny truck. And the tiny truck that has like 6 people in the back because we're the ground team going to pick up this animal, right? So our vet goes up, they locate the eland, we're like talking on the radio. She darts the eland. The eland takes off, right? So there's this excitatory phase when they get hit with drugs. Everybody's like, when a zoo animal gets out, why don't they just dart it, right? And we have this conversation all the time, is like, there's the excitatory phase of induction of anesthesia where the animal just loses its and runs, right? And then you might lose the animal. So the problem is she darts this eland and he starts going straight for ravine. And so we're sending all the vehicles around to try to cut him off from going into the ravine. And he's just heading straight. And, there's yelling on the radios, etc. We're flying to get to this animal. We lose him. We lose sight of him. And we all hop out of the bucky, finally, get on foot, find him in the ravine. I don't know how to explain this to you, but he's like, if you imagine a forest and the cliffs, and then like as you're going down the cliffs, there's like all these little like cattywampus like sides with trees and whatever, slightly falls down in and then gets like caught upside down, like on his back in between 2 bushes, like going down the side of a mountain, right?
Okay, not the most convenient position.
No. And on top of it, you're like, okay, if this animal just lays like that, you have a ruminant that is now on its back that, in a perfect world, in a zoo, right, you would be able to fast an animal and blah, 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 and not have to worry about all of these things. But now you're concerned because he's sedated on his back, like corkscrewed around a bush. And we have to figure out how to get this 1,700-pound animal, like, not only upright, but like now up the side of this hill. And we're like 6 girls and 5 guys.
Easy.
So super easy. They have this thing in Africa where they say, oh, we need all the strong men. And unfortunately, when they say we need strong men, it's like a bunch of women built like me, which I am a strong man. I do identify as a strong man, but it's not always the most ideal situation. So we find this eland and we start tying ropes, right? Because that's the only way we're going to be able to kick him over. And then the big unfortunate part about this whole situation is we now have to wake this animal up enough that he can stand up and we can like guide him to walk back up the hill, right? Because we can't carry him, but not enough that he's just going to pull through all the ropes and bulldoze us. And
my heart rate is increasing just hearing this. So,
and this is like my 3rd day, right? As like working as a wildlife veterinarian. And mind you, my 3rd day, I just finished my 2nd year of vet school. I should not be responsible for this. But the vet is up in the helicopter being like, everything's fine, right? And we're like, yeah, everything's fine.
So you have an animal, you're estimating the weight, which leads to an estimation of the drugs to knock it down. And then you have to estimate the exact amount of reversals so it wakes up a little bit. Okay, easy. Continue.
And that's actually a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up. We can talk about that in the resolution. But so we get there and we do another veterinarian gets to us. So we have somebody on the ground that is a vet, that is a fully fledged, like graduated, is working for Will Fold's vet. So we feel better. But so we get there's a partial reversal. We administer the partial reversal. We have all the ropes up. And now we have to like flip this animal. He starts to wake up, right? So we're trying to flip him over and pull him up. We have a head rope and a butt rope. And so everybody's on a rope, just like shoving, trying to pull this eland up a hill. And we finally get him walking up the hill. People are like falling down, like sliding down in the mud. You know, it's the wild, wild west out there. There really is no good
It
way to
really is.
explain this, but people are tripping over ropes. Like there's people that don't necessarily completely speak English. So we're all just trying to like yell at each other and give commands and like work together. And it's a lot. It's a lot of fun, but it's a lot. So we finally get this animal up to like the place where we can then work on it, like at flat ground where the bucky can be. And then we have to knock it back down, right? So we can then put it on the stretcher and load it into the back of the car. So, and this is where the vet students get to like be in charge of everything. And if you know like how easy it is, like let's talk about how easy it is to just give an IV injection to a horse, right? Like you can just give it in the jugular vein. The veins are huge, whatever. Eland, not the same. Like Eland, you're giving IV injections in the ear vein. And mind you, this animal is like half sedated, but not really. So like kind of reactive, but also just like big and stupid and you know, not acting right and kind of like waking up and wanting to get away and then being like, oh, wait, just kidding. I'm a little drunk, you know, like, and as this girl, one of my friends, is trying to get a needle in its ear to give it more ketamine to put it back to sleep so that we can get it on the vehicle, et cetera, et cetera. So we have people holding it on ropes from both ends and we're trying to get this ear vein, right? And you're like holding the ear. You have somebody like I'm holding the front of the animal, like somebody's holding off the vein. She's trying to get this like tiny little needle in this tiny ear vein and this giant eland. And that was a whole scene in and of itself. We finally get the drugs in. We knock it down. And that's when I realized I don't think I really thought through how difficult this was going to be. But like we have this animal on the ground, right? And then we have to get it onto this steel stretcher. So we're like, it's taking, I don't know, 10 people to all fit in and like get hands underneath this animal to roll it onto a stretcher. So we finally do that. And then we have to just hand lift it. A 1,700 pound, it's huge, into the back of a Ford Ranger. And everybody's yelling. Everybody's like shoulder to shoulder trying to get in there. And I'm like, I'm in there and I'm like squished between two guys. And I'm literally like, I can't even get ground underneath me to like use any of the muscles that I actually have. Like, I don't know how people contort themselves and like use all of their musculature to lift these animals. It seemed impossible. It seemed impossible. But we somehow did it.
Nothing's impossible.
Apparently nothing is impossible. We somehow did it. And we got him into the back of the car. And then the team of like 3 other girls and then a couple of guys got into the back of the bucky with this animal, and we were transferring it then to a trailer to then take it somewhere else, right? So we're riding in the back of this truck essentially with the eland in the truck asleep, ideally. And we go over the ravine, we start to get out, and we're literally hauling ass, bouncing all over the place, et cetera, et cetera. And all of a sudden, his skin starts twitching. And I was like, he needs more ketamine. And the girls were like, what? And I was like, he needs more ketamine. And I don't know, I'm stupid. I don't know what I was thinking, but I like laid my body across him, thinking that my little like 150-pound body is going to hold down this animal. I don't know. Yeah, anyways. So we had a girl on each ear trying to hit a vein. And mind you, it's just impossible. You're in a moving vehicle where I'm like tapping the top of the truck and I'm like, hey, like we need to stop. We stop the truck and they're just trying to get some analgesics into this animal. And I'm laying on top of him and all of a sudden ear twitch. And I was like, oh no. I was like, you guys, we got to hit it. Like, you have to get the drugs in him now.
Yeah.
Another ear twitch. And then he literally just stands up, just
Oh my
pops up,
goodness.
flies me off. I like hit the side. So these trucks have like sidebars kind of.
Yeah.
So I like hit the sidebar. And then I start yelling. I was just like, "Out! Everybody get out! Everybody get out! Everybody out!" I like turn around and this guy, one of our ground team behind me, literally is like pinned. The eland is leaning towards us. he's pinned between the eland and the vehicle on his like shin. And he, like, you could tell he already tried to dip out of the truck, but like the eland is holding and he's like yelling. And I was like, oh my God. So I like grab the side of the bucky of the truck and I like booty popped the eland off of this guy. This guy falls onto the ground. I have another student there that was standing there like this, like eyes open, like not knowing what to do. I was like, get out of the vehicle, get out, get out. I had another guy coming from the ground in a vehicle that was following us, like lifting students out of the vehicle. There's a whole video of this. I essentially like knocked the eland off this guy and then dove headfirst out of the vehicle. And this eland's just like standing up in the back of this truck. And I was like, oh my God, this is worst case scenario. This is worst case scenario. This animal is way too big to be in this truck anyways. And we literally had 6 people in the back of the vehicle with it. And he just wakes up. He just wakes up in the back of the vehicle. It was insane.
That's crazy. That is insane. That is so. Resolution. What did he jump out, run off? Were you able to sedate him again?
I was expecting that he was going to jump out and run off, but thankfully he didn't. Like once we all got out of the vehicle, he just stood up and he was blindfolded. So he just was basically like, what's happening? And then a vet came from another vehicle and like got on top of the vehicle and was able to sedate him to go down again. And thankfully he did not wake up a second time. So we then were able to just like get him to where we needed to get him to, and load him into the moving vehicle. But what was crazy is that that was traumatizing in and of itself. Granted, like I have been in bad situations like that before. So like, but I was stressed because the rest of the vet students were panicking. Like it was a full blown, I have never seen so much panic in one moment. And I was like, oh my God, somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody did get stomped on. Like this one girl had to go over the top of the truck. Like it was quite an experience. And the worst part is that it happened again. Like it happened with the second eland. And the second eland actually like jumped out of the vehicle. And mind you, this was not my eland, so I was watching this from afar. But he actually woke up and ended up jumping out of the truck, which is crazy. And then I can't remember if it happened to the third one or not. But we had a discussion after, and I had never thought about this. And this was a good learning experience. But what you were saying is like, we were visualizing how much the animal weighed, how much drugs to use, et cetera, et cetera. And the doses that we were using are correct. And had we given any more knockdown drugs or anything, like we could have killed the animal. Like what we were doing is correct. But Will speculates that these animals are just so fat that the volume of the drugs are not being metabolized properly. Because he was like, this happens every year. And I was like, if it happens every year, why don't you warn us? It would have been nice just
it's probably
to
more
know.
fun on his part just to see your reaction.
I mean, that's the thing. It's a good learning experience. I will be prepared in the future to just expect that if I ever work with Eland ever again. But yeah, it was crazy. They're the most unsuspecting looking animals. They're like giant cow antelope, essentially.
Pretty much, yeah. And it's easy to to not panic, especially when it's your first time. It's like that's your instinct to panic. But if that's a field you want to get into, you got to anticipate the craziest things that happen, because you're right, this is a completely different world than in a zoo setting. In a zoo, you're in a confined space. You can sometimes have an animal willingly walk into a crate to be confined, be injected, and accept these behaviors. In the wild, it's
whole
crazy.
Different ball game.
It's a whole different ball game. And for anyone listening, asking, why would you even put the animal through this? What was the goal? I mean, it's a very important tool in conservation, but why were you moving these eland?
It obviously depends on the species and the reserve and et cetera. And I think that in this case, like we had too many, if I remember correctly, there were too many male eland in one part of the reserve. So we were just moving them to another place so that they would have more space, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, it definitely depends. We did a lot of relocations, and there is a lot of buying and selling of animals that happens between reserves, especially because, not a lot of people think about this or know this, but especially in the Eastern Cape, almost all of the wild lands are cordoned off and managed and owned by people. So as animals like breed and reproduce, et cetera, there is not necessarily enough predator versus prey. There's not necessarily enough space for all of the animals. So as far as like protecting their populations and, each species and their welfare, sometimes they just need to move to different pieces of land.
Yeah, excellent point. People think about Africa and the wild, thinking these animals have endless amounts of land, but the reality is not only in South Africa, but in most of these countries, like all the land's like separated into these private reserves and farms and stuff. So they may have lots of space. They may have like thousands of acres or hectares or however you want to, look at the measurements, but it's still limited. It's not unlimited, wildlife as a lot of people imagine. So sometimes you have to manage these populations by moving surplus males to other parts of the country, other ranches, other areas.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, it's I feel like there's so many things that like we think of Africa as this beautiful oasis and this beautiful wild, and it absolutely is in so many ways, but in a lot of ways Africa, like America, like other places that are populated with people, like the actual habitat that wildlife calls home is being encroached on in all of the same ways, because there has to be space for people to live, and those animals can't necessarily share that land with people. And so then what?
Yeah, the reality is there really is no wild the way people envision it. It's not exactly like The Lion King.
I wish it was. Have you seen the trailer for Mufasa?
I've seen it. Yeah, it's coming out soon. That looks... What? Why are you giving me that look?
Do you hate it?
I don't hate it. I'm skeptical. I hope it's good. I have my concerns.
What are you skeptical about? What are you concerned about?
The story, the whole relationship with Mufasa and Scar at the beginning, and how I don't know. Look, I'll go into it with an open mind. All right, I have my concerns, but
you better. I'm very excited about it.
I'm sure. I can't wait to see your Mufasa cosplay.
Ooh, interesting.
Oh yeah. Actually, no. You know what? Rafiki. That would be good.
Okay. Yes. Have you seen the Rafiki Broadway costume?
Yes, Lion King Broadway I love. I've seen that show several times.
It's incredible.
Yes.
I just saw it for the first time a couple weeks ago, and the woman that plays Rafiki is South African. And you can hear it in the way that she sings, and I sobbed. Circle of Life, I was sobbing.
the opening to that play, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Broadway Talk with Mike and Mess. we just changed the podcast. No, but the opening of that play is the best opening to any Broadway play. The Circle of Life. I took my kids last year. It was playing locally. I made sure to get a seat on the floor right by the aisleway because they didn't know what to expect. But I knew that giant giraffe would be walking right by them. Those big old elephants right down the aisleway. I wanted to make sure they were just blown away. It was amazing. And Rafiki, if you don't know, Rafiki is the mandrill, is the monkey with the bright colored face.
He's not
Rafiki.
A monkey. Is he a monkey? Are mandrills monkeys?
Mandrills, they are monkeys. They do have a short little stubby tail. They are monkeys. I worked with a mandrill when I was in Moore Park. They used to be classified as baboons, but since then they've been reclassified as their own animal. They're mandrill. Well, I forget what their scientific name is, but they are monkeys.
Monkeys. Okay.
Yes.
I have this argument a lot with people because just so you know, nobody knows the difference between a monkey and an ape.
If anyone listening, monkeys have tails. Apes don't. It's that simple. If you go to a zoo, you go in the gift shop and you see them selling a chimpanzee stuffed animal and it has a tail, you're free to yell at someone. You have my permission. Demand to talk to the manager.
I hate when people are like, oh my God, let's go look at the monkeys. And I'm like, that is a chimp. You better respect the chimp name.
Don't get me started on movie sound effects. Every monkey, whether it's small or big in a movie, will have a chimpanzee sound effect for its voice. Drives
Well,
me
that's not any
crazy.
better than the American eagle and the or the bald eagle
Bald eagle.
and
They
the
all, yeah, they all have like
red tail
hawks.
hawk.
Yeah, they have
Mm-hmm.
the hawk screams.
Mm-hmm.
So elands though, that's crazy.
Elands. Yeah. Sorry. Yes. Yes. That was crazy. That was probably the most crazy thing that happened to me in that trip that I
I
can
don't
think
think
of
how
right
I don't know
now.
how you could top that. Yeah, I've gone through some large animal knockdowns, but luckily they've all woken up at the end of the procedure when they were supposed to wake up.
Not while you're laying across their back.
Yes, but
I
yeah, I
know.
do. I haven't had that experience though. We were describing when the eland was running towards the ravine and you trying to
Mm-hmm.
redirect it, and we've done that with
Mm-hmm.
giraffes. You dart a giraffe,
Mm-hmm.
and they
Mm-hmm.
kind of run mindlessly into they don't know where they're going, and you have to direct them to make sure they stay. Because keep in mind when we're doing this for the safety of the
Mm-hmm.
safety of the animal and the health of the animal is our number one priority,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be challenging, but that's what our goal is, to have a
Yep.
safe and healthy outcome for all the people involved and the animals.
Yeah, yeah, and the unfortunate part about it is that sometimes, like, try to set it up for success and it still goes wrong. But what's cool is like when you have a team that like everybody's just like, okay, we're gonna fix this, like in the moment, like no arguing. And I think that's one of the coolest things about just learning in the fields, especially in South Africa, is that like at the end of the day, these people do this every single day and they know what they're doing. And everybody is just like, pull your sleeves up and like get in there and get it done. And it really gives you the opportunity to learn that like not all of the things that we do are going to be perfect all the time. Like as much as like we work towards it in a zoo setting with our husbandry training and, our team meetings and like planning and everything, like it's still not going to go as perfectly as we want it every single time. And part of being successful in this field and making sure that the animals are taken care of and welfare is prioritized is that we're able to move on the ball and just like get in there and get it done. And so I think it's a really, really positive experience for anybody that is looking to grow as a zookeeper, as a veterinarian, as a vet tech, that wants to work hands on with these animals to like go have these experiences working in the field. Then you're going to appreciate your fancy hospital a lot more when you get back. But yeah, it really teaches you like a level of teamwork that you don't really understand until you're in that position where you have to rely on everybody and everybody has to be reliable.
Yeah. And going in on your first experience and having so much go wrong, that'll make every other procedure in the future seem so easy. But also they
Yeah.
got to, they'll be prepared next time, and they got to see
Hmm.
how the experienced vet responded. She didn't panic. She
Hmm.
got on the roof. She got the
Oh my gosh,
injection in.
she's
She
such
got
a
the animal back
baddie.
down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's such a baddie. It's funny
And that's what
because
experience brings.
yeah, absolutely. And it's actually very inspiring working with somebody like that too, because you kind of see her and you see that opportunity to be like, when you like things don't go as planned and you get flustered because you didn't think about plan B or plan C, or you were so like, oh, this is, what I'm relying on everything to go right. And to see somebody that's just like, you know what, it was one of our first procedures. It was her first time darting out of a helicopter and she hit every single animal first try. And I'm just like, you know what? You're a badass and I really want to be you when I grow up. So it's really cool. It's really cool to like work around these people that just, get in there and get it done. And it's inspiring.
Yeah, this is what you ideally want to do, and these are the people doing it. They have been doing it, and they're doing it successfully, and
Mm-hmm.
that's inspiring to watch. It's like that it
Mm-hmm.
can be done and be done well,
Yeah.
and that you can get to that point where you can do it and you can do it well. That's inspiring.
Hopefully. Hopefully that,
Oh, you'll
yeah,
get
that,
there.
I mean, I hope so. It makes me think of all the times, where we're like, again, like when we're in the zoo and we're trying to set things up to be perfect and we're like, oh, he looked at me weird today, so we're not going to do this procedure. And I think it's a really cool privilege that we have to be able to do that in a zoo setting. But also there is validity to like look at these experiences and be like, hey, like it doesn't all have to be sugar-coated rainbows, like we can still get the things that we need to do done if we really put our minds to it and like have faith.
Exactly. Well said. Well, I know you have so many more stories I want to hear, but we're running out of time, so I'll have to have you back on in the future to talk about other near disasters you've been a part of.
Maybe I shouldn't talk about near disasters all the time, because then nobody will hire me. They'll be like, this girl is a walking disaster.
Maybe it's a trend. Why is she always involved with the disasters?
Oh gosh, actually, maybe you shouldn't post this.
Oh, okay. Well, back to Broadway talk. So, Phantom of the Opera. No, just kidding. All right. Well, thank you. Anything you'd like to add on the way out?
No. I mean, I can't think of anything unless you
follow
have
you
any...
on social media.
Yeah. Gosh, yeah. Feel free to follow me on social media. I am
Zoogirlq.
At Zoogirlq on all platforms.
Excellent. Yes, they're mostly cosplay, but there's a lot of there's some animal stuff on there occasionally. I filmed quite a lot of things while I was in South Africa and Botswana and stuff. So a lot of my content is going to be more animal geared going forward, especially my long form content. So follow me on subscribe to me on YouTube. YouTube's it. All right. Zoogirlq. I can't wait to see it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Bye, Mike.
See, wasn't that fun?
Yeah.
Want to give a big thank you to Madison for joining the podcast. We had a lot of fun, as you could probably tell. Very similar to how our working relationship used to be. A lot of goofing off, a lot of laughing, a lot of telling jokes. It was a lot of fun, but she's going her own way now, and I'm very impressed, very proud of the work she's doing. Give her a follow. She's on all the social medias at Zoogirlq. Definitely recommend giving her a follow, checking her out. And if you want to interact with the podcast, please join us on Instagram, Wild Tales Pod, and on Blue Sky, there's just at Wild Tales. And you can always email the podcast with any questions, comments. Do you have a story that you want to share? I would love to hear it. That you can email me at wildtalespod@gmail.com. Again, that is Tales, Tails. I look forward to hearing from you. If you're enjoying the podcast, please like and comment on whatever platform you're listening to it on. It always helps in getting the podcast noticed. And we'll end it there. I hope you're having a wonderful holiday season. Have a great new year, and hope your 2025 is as best as it can be. Until next time, stay wild, my friends.